I have so many discussions and interviews, also some podcasts even, and I struggled also remembering what did we discuss last time. And the cool thing, like now with AI, is that I just put the link to our podcast in Gemini, and it summarized very nicely what we have discussed. Yeah, so these summarizations, I think you can use them for many things, because it's just time is always the essence, and you don't have time to re-listen to all the podcasts and discussions and then make some notes. Yeah, and this is one of the great levers of AI to summarize things and save time.
Welcome to the Trend Detection Podcast, powered by Siemens. And now your host, Niall Sullivan.
Hello, and welcome to the latest episode of the Trend Detection Podcast. Back with us today, a regular face or voice, I should say, on the podcast, Peter Schopf. Welcome back, Peter. Good to have you back.
Thanks for having me. Great to be back.
And it's very interesting, actually. We were having a discussion just before, because this is obviously our regular segment for regular listeners, IoT Time, but we're actually thinking of changing that name, and we're going to talk about that today, actually, because it's evolved much more beyond IoT into sort of AI and Gen AI, and those and agentic AI as well, and those sort of topics. So we're going to talk about that. But I guess before we go into that, we can sort of recap a little bit where we picked up from last time, which was around that very interesting topic, and very it's been talked about everywhere around ChatGPT agents. I think we were talking about what sort of maturity levels, where are we? Are people utilizing these type of things? We've actually done a few podcasts ourselves around this topic, particularly with James Loach, who's the head of research for Senseye, and it's very much him and his team are looking into this topic and what we can do on the predictive maintenance side. But it'd be good to again broaden that out and look at the broader picture of you, Peter. So from where we were last time. So let's start what we talked about last time, and maybe a look ahead to what's happened since then, basically.
Sure, and as we discussed, it's very interesting to think about it. Yeah, I have so many discussions and interviews, also some podcasts even, and I struggled also remembering what did we discuss last time. And the cool thing, like now with AI, is that I just put the link to our podcast in Gemini, and it summarized very nicely what we have discussed. Yeah, so these summarizations, I think you can use them for many things, because it's just time is always the essence, and you don't have time to re-listen to all the podcasts and discussions and then make some notes. Yeah, and this is one of the great levers of AI to summarize things and save time. And this is what I did. And then I found out that we had a very nice discussion already about the topic of agents. Yeah, this is definitely something evolving, single agents or multi-agent systems, and many companies talk about it. However, I mean, now everything is called agent, and that's very difficult to differentiate then between all these AI agents, what really makes sense, and where are these companies? Because some call agents like something where you just make a system prompt, just kind of a small configuration, it's suddenly an agent, while the real agent, how you imagine it, that you give them a task and it goes off and really makes a plan and has memory and structures it and has tool callings and uses different tools to solve your task. That's very often just not done yet, yeah, and for some topics also not possible. And last time we talked about the differentiation, which I think is very helpful, and this developed by now into kind of a model where you have different stages, and we could talk about these different stages because I think they make a lot of sense of where do you start with all those topics and how this continues. And obviously how this all changed now very rapidly with GPT-5, which is now available for so many people suddenly. And before that, reasoning models have been available to many people, but they have not been used. So only very few people used reasoning models. And now everybody has access to GPT-5, which uses reasoning models if you need it, but can answer very quickly if you don't need it. And that's I think will be a wake-up call for many, to say that.
Man, that's a really good starting point. I was just making some notes to get us started. And I guess the point start with is interesting that already agentic AI, which is an emerging sort of theme and technology, is already becoming something misunderstood and misinterpreted or misused in terms of people labeling everything with agentic AI. Because it makes me think of actually predictive maintenance as an example, where there's a lot of tools and software and whatever out there that put predictive maintenance on them, but do they really do that? Or they say they do AI, and do they really do that? And I'm just wondering, what from your perspective, Peter, why do you think that sort of happens? How does that sort of creep in? Is it just people want to jump on a trend and want to be part of it before they've maybe fully understood it? I don't know, maybe something like that.
Yeah, it's all marketing as well. I mean, these terms are not kind of they're not safeguarded. Yeah, you can use them for anything. And then, I mean, we know it has been done always. Like the greenwashing with sustainability, that suddenly projects you do anyway, you somehow label them as, now this is a sustainability project, just because it has something to do with energy. Yeah, so this has, and it's similar with AI, of course. So as soon as you also have classical AI prediction models from, I don't know, 10 years ago, you suddenly try to make that work during this hype of agentic AI and generative AI, which is at the core, like transformer-based generative AI. I've been at conferences and presentations where they started off with like, hey, Gen AI or AI will change everything. They showed GPT as an example, the rapid user growth and things like this. And then as an example case of how AI will change everything, they then talked about the prediction of a retailer and what he's going to sell. And this is different. I mean, you cannot bring that together, because on the one hand side, Gen AI, you need to talk to it. Yeah, talking language is kind of the interface, and it's so easy to use for certain aspects, but not, for example, for prediction. For prediction, you need classical machine learning, for the time being, in any case, for most of the cases, where you train your own model with specific own data. And to try and kind of bring that together and use the one for the marketing intro and show the other one as case example, it's kind of apples and beers. Yeah? So you just mix something together which doesn't really fit. And this many do. Yeah, you use the hype around Gen AI and then label everything you have AI. And that's quite an interesting trend, I think.
And now, of course, we're talking today, and I did promise to release this podcast quickly, so we're not behind the times. But with GPT-5 being released, where is that taking us next in terms of our discussions around sort of industrial IoT and if we focus on that sort of side of things to begin with?
Yeah. So as I talked last time, we talked about these different types of agents, like assistants, which are not very integrated into your systems and not automated, or also, for example, autopilots, like deep research would be one example, where you send an AI out and it does things, but it's not integrated into your systems. It's automated, but not integrated. This could be an autopilot or a copilot. We like Microsoft Copilot, which is deeply integrated into your systems. Very nice that it has access to your emails, calendar, your SharePoint, OneDrive, and else. But it's not very automated. Yeah, you need to talk to it and do things very precisely. So far, GPT just will change that. We talk about that in a minute. And then basically, if it's automated and integrated, you are with agents. And this with these stage models which I developed, the first stage would be prompting. And prompting already on the first stage, many people did that for emails, summarize my email or write it nicely or things like this. Yeah, so it was a very basic operational tasks. And there was this huge gap, which I kept talking about, that strategic prompting is not done. And strategic prompting is really where kind of leaders for complex topics use AI to structure these topics. And this could be like a program management. Like we want to go international, we want to reorganize ourselves and things like this. Or strategy, we have targets, how do we break them down? objectives and key results, for example, and all these until like from the very high level to very micro level. And this has not been done. And it was like really this, we can talk about the later, reality gap. I like the term because it was so obvious and striking, a reality gap between what is possible and what people are using it for. But it was this slight challenge of using the right model so far before GPT-5, yeah? Because you could use these out of the how do you say, out of the gut feeling models, yeah, GPT-4o, for example, yeah, quick response, but not very thought through. Yeah, you need to be lucky to get a very complex problem analyzed in a way that it's good. And then you had the reasoning models like O3, and they have been very good in reasoning already, O3 Pro especially, breaking things down. If you have a program, like what are the steps that are required, what are the resources, even up to how much does it cost, how many months do you spend, yeah, very nicely. But you need to change the model, and many people did not do that. Now with GPT-5, big difference. Everybody has these GPT-5 models, and it selects the complexity, basically, like which kind of underlying model it uses based on the complexity of your prompt. And that will, for many, make it much more easy to ask it challenging questions and get a very good reply. Based on the level of complexity, it will use more intelligence or less, basically. And I think this will, because so I was kind of trying to make people understand all the time, hey, use those reasoning models, use them for complex things. Yeah, you can do that. And nobody really enacted that. Now with GPT-5, it's going to be transformational if you really do it, because suddenly, I mean, I've been there with Siemens. Yeah, I've been in many of those leadership meetings about strategy, about reorganizations, and they take time. Yeah, highly paid individuals sit together and take a long time to get aligned on certain aspects, and it's high level still. Yeah, and the lower levels that need to figure it out how that works, and this can all change with those AIs that break those topics down in a very digestible manner. And of course, you can then, and you need to revise and say, these items, these action items are very good, we need to do them. Others are not good, we will not do them. And then iteratively optimize. But the time spent is like a fraction of before, if you do it right. And this with GPT-5 is much easier. It's not by default, yeah, because it's also a cultural and a mindset problem. People need to understand how and when to use it, but it's now much more usable. And that's I think, a very interesting trend with AI. It's not getting more complicated, it's getting more easy step by step. Yeah? And this, I think, will help a lot in adoption going forward.
And do you think that translate everything you've explained makes a lot of sense in terms of how advanced it is and how much easier it is to get the answers people want? But does that translate into an organization, you know, on a shop floor, for example, using this technology? Does it necessarily do they care about what model it is and what effect it has? I guess what they want is an end result or technology that helps support their day-to-day work. But I'm just wondering that translation between great new model, but what's it like for my day-to-day over here?
Exactly. And this, I mean, because it's not model related anymore, you don't need to care anymore. You just now have the best model, basically, or hopefully. I mean, sometimes it gives you an easy answer and you want to have a more complex thought through answer. Yeah, these smaller mistakes happen. But for example, on a shop floor basis, I mean, so far, if it was very challenging. Also, in talking about, again, integration, automation, integrating into your systems and getting the right data to the right model, it was challenging. But now GPT-5 is available in Microsoft Copilot for everybody who has Copilot access, and not even the advanced version. So it's actually very broadly available. And Copilot, that's different to, for example, assistants, has access to your data, to your SharePoint, to your OneDrive. So what somebody in the shop floor can do, all the documents that are related to troubleshooting or machine maintenance or else, you can put them into a SharePoint drive and use GPT-5 to ask questions, and now the quality of answers will be much better than ever before. And this will show. People will test it and will see that it works. It will not work for all questions. It will not work every time, but they will see that the level of support you can get now with these easy means, with just prompting based on your available documents, it's going to change a lot. And then you can take these further steps. For example, as we talked, I mean, this is just prompting. This is the first step, very easy. And then you can continue like creating assistants that do a certain task every time, very reliable, dedicated to that work task. And if you go then from assistance, for example, and this is how this model expanded also from last time we talked. Last time we had like just assistant and autopilot, copilot, and agent. Now you start with prompting, and this is how companies, and also if in the shop floor or with white collar workers, how they should do it. They should start prompting certain things, and if they find prompts that work, you can then build an assistant. That means all the prompting is already in the assistant. So you don't need to do that again. You just need to give your context, what's happening, what's your specific question now, different than regular, and push a button, and then you get the answer already based on exactly those knowledge sources you need. And this assistant can then develop into an agentic workflow. It can be one aspect, one part of a workflow, where you then have several assistants behind each other, and then they can be AI. They sometimes can be some algorithm, which is then not AI, and routing mechanisms and else. And the beauty about a workflow is that you can analyze and evaluate each step, and this is then able to, if you look at it from a process mindset, make a lot of automation and a lot of facilitation of highly frequent tasks.
And I guess to get to that point up, based on your sort of conversations and knowledge of the market, are people sort of jumping ahead to that, a lot more, or does it have to be sort of a step-by-step approach, or is it generally, not that it has to be, but maybe, maturity and things like that, they sort of take the step-by-step, basic prompts and this, or is there a lot of sort of, I want to go straight to, agentic AI and automating workflows and doing all that side of things?
There are reports out which tell that these agentic projects or agent projects fail 70% of the time, or something like this, like a very high number. It might even be higher. Why? Because you have these two-axis complexity of automation and integration, and most of these projects so far failed. In my case, I haven't done that. I haven't jumped forward to say, hey, we built an agent for you. I have taken it step by step. We started in our project with prompting and with assistance. So we have a very beautiful assistant in Aeon, which works for a very specific part in customer complaints management, and does this really well so that people love it. And this can then develop to the next step. I mean, I have a partner in Berlin who does these agentic workflows very well. This is not easy. And especially if you start with an agentic workflow project, you need to calculate some budget, a higher budget. It's a kind of six-figure number where you need to invest, because you need to define every step of this workflow. And some companies do that. They have the budget, they have the means, and they say, well, let's go. I mean, we have this workflow. There's no complex decision-making involved, so let's automate it. And this is happening. However, not on the scale, from my point of view, that it should be in Germany especially. But it also requires, as I said, it also requires budget, and it requires partners that know what they do. And these are not cheap, because there are not so many. And so the thing is, I would strongly recommend to start broadly with prompting, then try assistance, and then develop them into workflows. And I mean, always generative AI is very, very interesting and develops rapidly. So who knows if tomorrow comes an agent along that does everything perfectly, better than any human. Could in principle happen, but also GPT-5 now is much better than many, but it's also not a complete revolution of intelligence. Yeah, it's again a step up, and we have done these step ups very frequently. But it also shows that, I mean, you can only do so much with intelligence. You also need context. You need the right information, the right access, the right tooling, and else. Yeah, otherwise you just can't do the task you are asked for. And so these developments are very interesting to follow. No, and I think really it makes sense if we take it to the shop floor again to have this knowledge base of what can go wrong and how does it go wrong. I mean, as far as I know, Senseye does this as well, that it makes it very easy to collect all these instances and to go into why did it happen, how did it happen, and else, in order to train the models, right? And if you have that basis, you can also use that for example, Gen AI and prompt it. And now with GPT-5, the result will be much better than what has been done in the past. And then you take it further. Yeah, you start automating certain aspects, certain things along your value chain and task, and then take it from there.
And I guess it's when you think about, well, actually, if you compare it to even a Senseye deployment where you sort of want to choose assets which you won't like really tricky assets to onboard. So maybe the more traditional assets. So I guess it's the same with agentic AI where you want to choose workflows in the business. You don't go straight for the big critical operational one, or maybe you do. I guess that's part of my question. Do you start with something quite sort of simple and test the water and do I don't know if you call it a trial, but a trial version, and then progress steadily up towards something that's very complex and critical to the business sort of infrastructure?
Yeah. I mean, you should have some basic knowledge, and this kind of, I mean, there are different archetypes which I talked about normally. I mean, there's the strategic how companies approach AI, and there's the strategic approach, where you have target visions. We talked last time also about like these target pictures we have, because I think target images and pictures to see where things are heading are very important to understand what are the steps we need to take. Yeah, and if you have a strong vision and the means and the budget to back it up, you can of course do much broader range, and like you take the right partners that know what they do, and then you can go in full in. Yeah, and I would recommend actually companies who have the means to do that to do so. Yeah, because it's really, there's something happening here, and companies who sleep through it, they will have big problems. I mean, existential problems. Yeah, the cost of doing nothing is much higher, significantly higher than to have some failed agent experiments. Because you will learn, that's for sure. So, and this is happening at larger companies. They all take the strategic road. But then another archetype is to kind of have the explorative road, to have a more bottom-up approach in terms of giving the people the tools. And now this is better than ever with GPT-5, in order to try to find pockets of value and where they can be more efficient with AI. I mean, this is also a problem. Many employees already use AI at home for sure, and are not sure how to use it in work. Some then just don't use it at all, and don't get those efficiencies that they could. And others are use it quietly, and when they are more efficient and faster, they will just take longer breaks in home office or else, do the laundry, because they're much faster, and they will not share their knowledge. There are reports around that, which prove that. And this is a big problem for many companies who don't leverage what some bottom-up people know, where AI can be used effectively, because there's no clear codex of how AI is treated in the company. And there's also a report where managers that don't know how to use AI, they will rather think people that use AI are lazy instead of valuing their ingenuity. And this is a very critical thing. You need to also train your managers for them to understand that AI is a significant change now in everything what will happen. And if you don't do that, there are even counterintuitive things like they will give more difficulty to, for example, applicants who use AI because they think they're lazy. And very interesting to to have these thoughts and discussions within a company. And just the third item, third archetype is like to have these lighthouse projects. To take one big project, try to make it work, because if it works, you can be much more effective, much more efficient. For example, like insurance cases, that you automate a complete insurance. In China, this is already happening. If you have a car crash or something, you make a picture, you send it in, and supposedly, I've never seen it myself, but stories tell that like in 2 minutes you get your money. That is something which is unbelievable for us at the moment. But if companies do those things, I mean, it will not happen from today to tomorrow. But companies also, especially in China and the Far East, they are already preparing for this. And if we sleep through in Europe, and if we don't do that, we have a big problem.
Yeah, that's a really good, in a way, because we're coming towards the end. It's a really good message to sort of, because hopefully this has inspired a lot of people to sort of start thinking about it now. Don't keep putting it off. Oh, it's there, and I'll look at it. I'll get round to it at some point. But really start thinking about integrating it, or where you can start integrating it in your daily workflows, even if it's on a small base. You don't need to go straight to agentic AI. But the point I wanted to touch upon, because you mentioned about people using it at home, maybe quite readily and for many, many different things, but reluctant to bring it into the workplace. So maybe we could expand on that a little bit, what you were saying, Peter, because that's quite interesting. Is there, I don't know, where does that reluctance sort of stem from?
Yeah, because there's no clear. Sometimes it's also the workers' council, for example, which will block some things like these. To say no, we don't first want to understand everything, and so sometimes it's not only workers' council. Actually, they could be a big positive part of that change. Drive the change instead of being a blocking point or delaying things. So I don't want to attack them, but there are many like process topics that need to be solved and are solved if they're not the priority, kind on the side, step by step, and until you have an aligned codex. Again, something like this, AI could help significantly to create something like this. We just did that in a recent consulting approach where we create, where there have been a lot of meetings planned and an external lawyer and else. We just used GPT-5 and to create the whole thing around how to use AI and leverage AI in that company. And this needs to be clear. And if it's not clear, people will be careful, because some, justifiably so, there are some companies reacted on the trend of AI, like don't do anything until it's not clear what happens with the data and else. And this is now in the minds of people. Don't do anything. While at the same time, I mean, yes, data security is very important, but some take it as like an excuse of not doing anything, because data security, I mean, if you ask a reasoning model to structure kind of potential strategies, as long as you don't say this is what we do, or if you don't give like internal data, it's just like a game of mind where you could ask anybody, and you don't provide much information for certain aspects, for certain use cases. It's not the person who provides the information, it's the AI model that gives the information. And there's no data security problem here, because the AI gave the problem. Anybody who prompts the AI accordingly could get the same information. And also when you think about data security, even if, and this is, I mean, all these companies, they contractually agree not to train their models if you have the right settings. And it's their trust is their basis for business. So if they do that, obviously this trust would be gone, and then they are out of business. So but even if they would do that, which they, I'm pretty sure are not, then it's like any kind of prompt is like a drop in the ocean kind of thing. Because it's the kind of one sentence, the amount of data they train their models on is unbelievable. And therefore, it's just even if they would do it. But also there, you can host the models locally on an Azure cloud, which then for sure does not use that for training. And so there's so many potentials to make sure that data is secure, if it's even a data problem, that it's just an excuse. But it's I think partially a human reaction to a complication they see.
Exactly. No, and again, I think that leads us to the end of this episode, but also plenty of discussion points to break out into future episodes as well. And to that point, so we talked in the intro about changing the name of the podcast, right? And the IoT Time, I love that because a little play on words. I'm not saying it's the most clever play on words ever recorded, but I mean, we could simply rename it something like AI Time. But I don't know whether you had anything else in mind, Peter, from your side.
Yeah, I mean, IoT is the Internet of Things. Yeah, so IoT could also mean the intelligence of things. Yeah, it's actually the same letters. And when we talk about intelligence of things, I mean, things will get intelligent. Yeah, it's gonna be the computers, it's gonna be the machines, it's gonna be robots. Humanoid robots will be a trend of like next year. So they're already starting going into production, into serious production. And so the intelligence of things, if you spell it out, and maybe we can still put the A in front. Yeah, A IoT time. It's not normally you would write an IoT time, yeah, but a IoT time would then be AI, and then the intelligence scale, maybe something like this. But we'll figure that out. This could be a play of words. A IoT time.
I need to put my marketing hat on, or maybe I should ask Microsoft Copilot or other Gen AI tools out there.
Exactly, well. They're good in coming up with something like this. Yeah.
Fantastic. But no, thank you so much for joining us again, Peter. The time has flown by as it always does. We'll certainly have you back on again soon if you're open to it, and we'll continue this discussion. And we're going to get this episode out very quickly, which can be a bit unusual sometimes, but we know we'll talk about hot topics that are changing constantly. So we're going to get this one out quick. And if there's any feedback or you want to discuss anything further with Peter, then we'll link to your LinkedIn page as we normally do, so people can connect with you directly. But for today, thank you again, and we'll see you on the next episode. And thank you everyone for listening, and see you on the next episode. Thank you very much.
See you soon. Bye.
Please like and subscribe on all major podcast channels, and find out more about Senseye Predictive Maintenance at Siemens.com.